Hey everyone, welcome to my pool plans video in DFFOO global version of the game covering late November 2021. This video will be covering events and banners where Lann and Reynn, the twins from World of Final Fantasy, will be featured as synergy units. You can also refer to the infographics on the left hand side of the screen. This was cropped and derived from Jakematt's global forecast, and I'll also be including a link to the description to the full forecast as well. As always, just some quick disclaimers before heading into the pool plans. This video shares my personal plans for the upcoming banners, and I will be sharing my thought process as well as to how I come to certain decisions on whether to pull or skip, or whether to use tickets or gems for the banners. There are of course multiple approaches to play this game, and really this is by no means the only way, and maybe even probably not the best way to approach some of these banners, because it is heavily biased towards my personal playstyle as well as my needs and wants. So it may or may not really be ideal for you, and I'm always a heavy supporter of doing research and making an informed decision on whether the unit is the right unit for you. Always plan ahead based on the amount of resources you have in terms of gems and tickets, what roles you need to actually fulfill for your roster, and of course your personal playstyle and preferences, and who your favorite Final Fantasy characters are. Without further ado, let's head on to the video. Something new that I thought I'd try in this pool plan video is to provide a very quick overview of how I fared in the last arc. So coming into the upcoming Lann and Reynn arc, we've just completed the events where Vayne was featured as synergy units, and overall throughout the entire arc with Vayne I was heavily only using tickets because I wanted to replenish some of my gem stash, and because I was nearing the ticket cap coming from the Divine Pandemonium summon board's grind. So overall I think I did fairly well. On the very first banner, on Vayne's banner, I spent the most number of tickets, and this is currently just an approximate. I forgot to actually keep track of the actual number, but it is actually pretty close to how much I spent. So the first banner took the most out of my ticket stash, came to close to 400 tickets in total, but I did manage to thankfully snag Vayne's burst weapon along the way while I was aiming for his LD weapon. So while I did spend quite a number of tickets there, considering that I snagged his burst weapon and his LD weapons in that 300 plus tickets, I think it's pretty good. I decided to skip Cloud of Darkness banner. I actually do not have Cloud of Darkness burst weapon, but I really don't want to start spending resource just only for the sake of the burst weapon, because the rates of actually getting a burst weapon is extremely small, especially if you're using tickets. They finally released Zack as well during Vayne's arc, and I was really a big fan of Zack, and while some people may make the case that you're probably better off waiting until you get his burst weapon, I think he offers quite a lot of in his current kit. Even without a burst mode, he does fairly decent damage, and he is a fairly good off tank. I think the only thing working against Zack is that we actually have Auron coming up in the next arc, and Auron actually becomes a fantastic tank with the introduction of his LD weapon. That being said, all in all I spent close to 200 tickets to snag his LD weapon. Next up we had Kate Sif, and by this point I've already actually spent more than half of my ticket stash, and I was actually even considering skipping Kate Sif at this point just to allow some time to recover some tickets, but I really liked the utility that Kate Sif can give, especially as a call ability as well, so I decided to try my luck. Luckily, just about 100 tickets and I scored his LD weapon, so overall a very good pull for me on that banner. Lastly, at the time of this video, we just completed Shulk's event, and coming into this banner, my interest to pull was actually getting lower and lower, mainly because I already scored Vayne's burst weapon. So after thinking about it for a while, I decided to just try out her Lufenia Plus before I pull, and because I did manage to complete her event, I decided to just give Shulk a miss altogether and recoup some of my resources. So I'm sorry Shulk, but you have to wait for your rerun before I use you in the Lufenia fights. So coming to the first event featuring Lann and Reynn, I'm very excited for them. I haven't really greened any character beyond Bards, so currently now in global version, Bards is my only green BT plus character, and I think Lann and Reynn will make an excellent second unit to green. So I'm really hoping to actually score their burst weapon, but coming to this event, I will mainly be aiming for their LD weapon, because their burst weapon is also featured on the next few banners and events. So I will be using gems primarily because I've used up quite a lot of my tickets, and I will stop once I get Twins LD weapon, but I do hope that since I'm using gems, I hope to actually score their burst weapon along the way. The event does feature a second banner with Garland's LD BT weapon as a rerun. I am going to skip the second banner because I already have all of Garland's weapon, including his burst weapon, so the second banner doesn't really have any attraction for me at this point of the game. I don't think I will realize on green Garland, because if I am already spending resources to invest in the twins, I will actually prefer to save what remains of my BT ingots, maybe for Jack or a future character. Alright, next up we have Garnet's intersecting wheels, I believe that's what it's called. And I really like Garnet. She was of course fallen quite heavily off the meta with the introduction of newer and newer units, so it's actually great to see that she gets an LD weapon here. I will probably pull for her because I have a softer spot for Elemental, Enchant and Imperil. There are always going to be fights that you could make good use of an Enchanter and Imperiler, especially in Lufenia Plus where the Brave damage resistances are extremely high, so hitting for Elemental weakness damage I think goes for a long way here. As for whether or not I use gems or tickets, at this point I think the decision is going to be based mainly on whether or not I did snag Twins burst weapon. So at this stage, if I do not have Twins burst weapon yet, I will probably go in heavy with gems, hoping that I will score the burst weapons along the way, but I will stop once I score Garnet's LD weapon. If I did luck out on the Twins BT weapon on the previous banner, then I will switch maybe to tickets, but let's see how it goes. My ticket stash is kinda hurting at this point. Now in the JP side of the game, they did have a banner featuring the release of Vanille's LD weapon and a rework for Vannile as well. At this point, I don't think it's been officially announced in the GL version of the game. I can't remember whether Josh mentioned this in the Square Enix stream, so I'm going to put this as a maybe that the banner will come up, but if anyone has more information on this, feel free to leave a comment in the comment section. If Vannile banner does get released here, I may pull for Vannile. I think in this arc, this is the banner that I'm having the most dilemma in. I think she does provide quite a lot, especially on the Dispel front, enemy buff dispels is actually quite an uncommon utility in this game. And considering that I skipped Shulk as well, this may actually be a good opportunity to update my roster on a buff dispeller unit. Having said that, there aren't that many banners that I'm going to skip on coming from here, so if my resources have taken a hit, I may just decide to skip this banner altogether and save my resources for another banner instead. But let's see how it goes. Hopefully I won't have to spend too much aiming for the rest of the LD and BT weapons on this arc. The final event and banner on this arc would be the Boss Rush number 6 event, featuring the release of Auron LD. Now the Square Enix stream did have it on the slides that Auron will receive a rework. However, Josh actually clarified that there isn't going to be a rework for Auron, so his base kit still remains the same. But make no mistake, his LD totally changes his entire kit, and it makes him probably the top tier tank in the current meta, which is quite valuable. Tanks do have a very good inherent value in the game, especially in the Lufenia Plus era, where many, if not almost all attacks from the boss can straight up one-shot your character. So having a tank to mitigate damage helps a lot in many of the Lufenia Plus stages. I will definitely be pulling on this banner, and really the decision whether or not I'll be using gems or tickets is going to be the same as with Garnet's banner. So at this point, if I really don't have Twins burst weapon yet, I will go in straight with gems until I snag Auron's LD weapon. But I may change my mind and use tickets instead if I have already used a lot of gems and if I've already snagged Twins burst weapon. But either way, I will be pulling on this banner 100% for sure. Auron is a great unit to have. So there are actually quite a lot of great characters in this arc, and looking at the global forecast and the Lufenia Plus era, there are a lot of other great characters coming up as well. So the question always comes back to, if you have limited resources in terms of gems, tickets, ingots or books, which characters should you aim for and which ones can be safe to skip? It is a fairly complicated question to answer, because I really think that the answer depends on what you have actually available in your roster, as well as to a certain degree your playstyle and preference. But make no mistake, I think the value actually can dramatically change based on which role that you need to fulfill, because the game really prioritizes and places emphasis on having a well-rounded roster and having a good variety of characters who can fulfill different roles. What I've done on this slide here is to briefly show how I would rank some of these characters based on how often do I think I will be using them. So they are somewhat biased based on how much I will want to use those characters, but I will try to at least provide some of the ideas and thoughts going to why I place the characters as such. But make no mistake, if a character is fully built with their LD weapon, there is really no inherently bad character per se. Every character with an LD weapon is usable even in Lufenia Plus, but I think some characters are probably easier to build a party with and will probably see more play compared to others, and that is the basis of how I rank some of these characters here. So starting off in terms of good value, these characters I think will probably see a lot of play and will help you manage a lot of the endgame content, especially some of the upcoming events. So the two characters that I place here would be Auron and Lann and Reynn. Auron I think probably doesn't need any further explanation. he's really a great tank with good damage mitigation, and having off-turn damage really helps a lot in some of these stages. If you've used off-turn damage dealers before, you've probably seen how much they can actually shorten some of the fights. So Auron, I think, goes a long way here. Plus he keeps your party safe as well, so there's really a lot going for Auron with his LD weapon. I placed Lann and Reynn here, and I think this can probably be a bit more debatable, but I think Lann and Reynn offers quite a lot, because at the current point in time there actually isn't a lot of DPS characters that specialize in area of effect damage. We do have Struggle, whose LD was recently rerun as well, but beyond that, a lot of the recent damage dealers I feel are more specialized towards the single target zone. So if you think about it, you have Seed Rains, you have Vayne. I guess Ace and Cloud of Darkness is a bit more AoE, but they don't truly specialize in the area of effect damage area as well. And I think having Lann and Reynn really gives you a well-rounded edge that you can then have at least the Twins as your go-to unit if you need someone to really have a good AoE damage. So for that reason, I put Lann and Reynn here. Next up is the role fulfillment category, and characters here I think can actually be very good, maybe even have as much value as the first category, but I think this depends more on your roster, so hence the term role fulfillment. So for example, Garland, Vannile and Garnet, if you are lacking this sort of utility, so Garland is quite good at delays. All his skills delays the enemies by 1 turn. Garnet, as I said before, is a great enchanter impaler and a good support unit to have. And Vannile provides the utility of buff dispel. So if you feel you haven't have one of this kind of utility for quite some time, then investing and pulling for these characters I think should serve you fairly well. Next up is the consolation prize category, and I'm not sure whether consolation prize is the right term for it. These characters are certainly not bad, but relatively speaking to the other characters, a lot of these characters here are reruns, and while they are usable, you can also make the case to use other units besides them. So here I have Rosa, Seven, Sabine and Kamlanot, and to me, because they are featured with one of the other characters on the banners, I sort of would be happy if I score their kit along the way, but for me personally, I will not go out of the way to chase any of their LD weapons if I already have the other weapons on the banner. So if I get their kit, good, and I may even realize or MLB their weapons, but I'm not gonna spend gems or tickets to chase them if I have to. So that's it for this video. Long story short, overall, most likely I'll be using gems for Twins LD. I will be skipping Garland and Rosa banner, and I will be either using gems or tickets going for Garnet and Auron's LD weapons, and I really hope I score Twins burst weapon along the way. If I do get Twins burst weapon, I will green them. They will be the second BT plus unit that I will have in my roster. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.